In the yellowed logbooks of 18th century Swedish whalers lies a blood-curdling entry. Through the thick fog, an island appeared that was not on any map. Black, false land slowly heaves from the icy water. Suddenly, the rock splits open, revealing a giant, phosphorescent yellow eye gazing at the sailors, paralyzed with terror. The dead waters boil. Colossal tentacles roar skyward, mercilessly dragging 3 oak brigantines into the black, insatiable abyss. Today, we will dive into the chilling abyss of the northern seas. We are about to encounter the primeval lord of storms, the great and terrible Kraken. Chapter 1. The Grimoire, Form and Power. Let us turn to the dusty pages of Bishop Erich Pontoppidan's ancient treatises, which hold forgotten testimonies of the sea devil. Chroniclers describe the unimaginable size of this Leviathan. Its bumpy back, rising above the waves, surpasses an entire rocky Norwegian archipelago in area. The texture of its flesh is deceptive. Ancient bestiaries state that the monster's skin resembles rough, porous volcanic rock. It is densely covered with razor-sharp barnacles, dead corals, and slippery brown algae, making the Leviathan utterly indistinguishable from a piece of land amidst the boundless salty wasteland. Along its colossal, writhing tentacles stretch eerie phosphorescent scars, traces of titanic battles on the ocean floor. In the impenetrable darkness of deep-sea trenches, they pulsate with a deathly pale green light, hypnotizing prey and luring it directly into the gaping maw of the primeval underwater deity. The monster's bottomless eyes inspire particular dread. Grimoires assert that their structure allows them to detect even the faintest ghostly glimmers of moonlight through miles of icy water. This unblinking yellow gaze paralyzes the will, draining sailors of their very will to live. When the Kraken leaves its lair, it emits suffocating, noxious vapors. This poisonous miasma instantly taints the cold air around it. Old sailors swore that seabirds caught in this foul cloud would drop dead onto blackened decks, portending the swift demise of the entire crew. But the most terrifying part begins when the Leviathan submerges. Its colossal mass, descending into the darkness, generates a monstrous whirlpool. This roaring vortex easily grinds oak frames and effortlessly drags even the heaviest, heavily armed battleship to the muddy bottom. The anatomy of its deadly tentacles conceals rows of serrated, horny suckers, hard as tempered steel. Biting into the hull of doomed galleons, they leave deep, jagged furrows on thick oak planks, firmly securing the victim before dragging it into the eternal cold darkness. At the very center of its intertwined fleshy ropes lies a massive maw, crowned with a sharp, chitinous beak. Ancient chronicles state that this bony trap can, with a deafening crunch, snap a ship's mainmast in half, as if it were not centuries-old timber, but a fragile, sun-dried reed. The chronicles of Albertus Magnus hint at another cunning ability of the creature: mimicry. The Kraken can instantly change its coloration, blending its gigantic body with the leaden waters of a stormy sea. This devilish trick renders it utterly invisible until it is too late. The creature's appearance is always preceded by a low-frequency, guttural hum rising from the darkest depths. This ominous vibration is so potent that ship planks begin to crack and warm blood flows from the ears of paralyzed sailors. Such is the sound of death itself, ascending from the abyss. If we open the 13th century Old Icelandic manuscript, Konungs skuggsjá, the King's Mirror, we will find the first documented description of this horror. There, the monster is hidden under the terrifying name Hafgufa. The wise men of those years wrote of it with sacred awe, calling it the greatest of all creatures forged in darkness. Hafgufa's hunting tactics are sophisticated and cruel. The Leviathan does not chase its prey. It opens its maw wide and spews out a thick, foul-smelling mass that serves as bait. Dazed by the scent, vast shoals of fish rush into the deadly trap, blinded by greed and inevitably swimming towards their doom. When the living silver fills the black abyss of its throat, the deadly trap snaps shut. In an instant, the Kraken devours not only the gathered fish, but also any unwary fishing boats that had the misfortune to be nearby, lured by an unprecedented, truly devilish catch in the cursed waters. Ancient beliefs state that in a moment of rage, the Kraken releases a colossal cloud of ink. This corrosive substance instantly transforms clear seawater into a thick, impenetrable tar. In this viscous, tar-like darkness, the crew completely loses orientation, doomed to a slow descent into oblivion. To cross these dead waters, the stern northern Pomors performed secret rituals. They whispered incantations and cast heavy copper coins into the icy abyss, attempting to appease the underwater lord. This tribute was payment for the right to pass over the sleeping god without disturbing its dark slumber. Protective runic symbols, known as Galdrastafir, were deeply carved into the oak keel of Pomor cocks. Seafarers firmly believed that these ancient inscriptions could ward off the giant, prowling tentacles that blindly groped through the impenetrable depths, greedily searching for warm human flesh for their master. Before entering the cursed dead waters, a special mystical fumigation of the wooden deck was performed. Smoldering dried heather and bitter wormwood emitted thick smoke that concealed the scent of living humans from the chthonic monster, silently slumbering in the black abyss directly beneath the ship's keel. There was a strict maritime taboo against uttering the creature's true name aloud, especially when thick fog descended upon the waves. Old sailors knew a spoken word resonates with the slippery abyss, inevitably drawing the hungry attention of the Lord of the Depths to a defenseless vessel lost in the milky haze. In the most extreme cases, when the icy water began to bubble ominously, the fresh blood of a black rooster was used. The bird's throat was slit, sprinkling the waves with a crimson pattern, a desperate sacrifice intended to sate the abyss's initial hunger and avert the wrath of the primeval Leviathan. Ancient Scandinavian belief holds that the Kraken slumbers for centuries at the very bottom, buried in viscous mud. Its unbroken sleep lasts until the monster senses, through the depths, the concentrated, sticky scent of human fear emanating from sailors doomed to certain death. The Kraken doesn't merely use an approaching storm for its hunt. It is the true root cause of the most destructive tempests. When the Leviathan begins its slow ascent from the darkness, the sea itself goes mad, raising monstrous waves capable of shattering any galleon to splinters. A single, unhurried movement of this creature's colossal mantle muscles generates devastating tsunamis that crash upon defenseless northern coasts. Giant masses of water erase fishing villages, sweeping hundreds of lives into the dark abyss, as if collecting a cruel blood tribute for its insatiable deep-sea deity. Ancient Norsemen genuinely believed that the Kraken was absolutely immortal, its age precisely matching that of the rugged Norwegian fjords themselves. It remembers times when ice gripped the entire land, and will patiently wait in the darkness for the day when the world is consumed by flames. The study of surviving fragments of unknown medieval grimoires reveals a terrifying truth. There is a direct mystical connection between the Kraken and the phases of the Black Moon. It is during these moonless, blind nights that the monster attains maximum power, and the boundary between our world and the cold abyss becomes frighteningly thin. Eerie chronicles mention a repulsive symbiosis between the monster and deep-sea blind parasites, whose size is comparable to large great white sharks. These pale, eyeless creatures swarm around its colossal, slimy body, feeding on the remnants of its meals and cleaning the phosphorescent scars of the decaying flesh of the drowned. Minutes before the Leviathan's swift ascent, the water temperature around the ship plummets to a chilling absolute. The deck instantly becomes covered in slippery hoarfrost, and the rigging transforms into brittle, icy strings, stripping the doomed crew of any hope of salvation in the face of the nightmare rising from the depths. At that very moment, the needles of the ship's compasses begin to spin wildly, as if driven mad. This occurs due to the powerful magnetic anomalies generated by the Leviathan's colossal body. Its monstrous nature distorts the Earth's field, rendering reliable navigational instruments into utterly useless pieces of dead metal. The creature's most insidious ability is to create illusions of salvation on land. By raising a portion of its bumpy, algae-covered back above the water, the Kraken cruelly deceives thirst-ridden seafarers. As soon as their longboats touch the false land, it swiftly descends, dragging the doomed victims into the dark abyss. A sure harbinger of the crew's imminent doom is the suffocating stench of rotting algae and decaying flesh, suddenly hanging in the stale air. This sepulchral odor emanates from the monster's bottomless maw, reminding sailors of the thousands of unfortunate souls who have already met their terrible end in its dark stomach. Medieval mystics seriously described the terrifying connection between the Kraken and the restless souls of the drowned. According to these grim treatises, swallowed sailors do not merely die, their ethereal bodies become eternal, wailing captives of the monster, forced to wander for centuries within its colossal, acid-soaked dark belly. Desperate pirates, driven into cursed waters, practiced a dark ritual of blood sacrifice. To ensure safe passage over the Kraken's lair, they coldly threw bound captives overboard. Their dying screams in the icy water served as a gruesome payment for the salvation of the rest of the crew's lives. The monster's nervous system is truly unique. It is not limited to its physical body, but extends for many miles around through invisible aquatic vibrations. The Kraken clearly senses every panicked beat of a human heart, transforming the cold ocean itself into its gigantic, hypersensitive web. Even more terrifying is the belief in the Kraken's ability to control the minds of weak-willed sailors. Under the influence of a silent, hypnotic call from the abyss, people would fall into a trance and voluntarily throw themselves overboard, plunging into the black water with blissful smiles towards the deadly embrace of the tentacles. On the washed-up remnants of ships torn to splinters, researchers found strange, inhuman runes. These deep furrows, left by the horny suckers, formed terrifying geometric patterns. It was as if an ancient deity was trying to convey its insane, incomprehensible message from the impenetrable darkness to those living on land. The only hope remained the protective power of whalebone amulets. These charms were enchanted by blind northern witches by the light of bonfires. It was believed that the ancient magic woven into the bone could, for a brief moment, blind the monster's inner sight, reliably concealing the fragile ship in the ocean's darkness. Secret archives mention a mythical artifact, the Compass of the Dead. Its needle, carved from human bone, allegedly pointed the only true path through the fogs, allowing one to bypass the Kraken's cursed lair. Whoever possessed it traded their soul for safe passage through the icy abyss. Ancient sagas state that the Kraken does not kill its victims instantly. Swallowed whole, the unfortunate sailors are doomed to languish for centuries in its bottomless, acid-burning stomach. Their flesh slowly dissolves in the black primeval darkness, while their screams merge with the dull, guttural rumble of the giant. Icelandic skalds whispered of black pearls the size of human skulls. It was believed that these cursed jewels formed for centuries within the creature's womb from the bones of swallowed kings and great warriors. Each such pearl holds the death throes of terror and a fragment of the abyss's dark power. There exists a grim theological theory recorded in the yellowed scrolls of the skalds. According to it, the Kraken is not merely a sea beast, but the eternal guardian of the icy gates of Helheim. It guards the borders of the realm of the dead, mercilessly dragging to the bottom anyone who dares disturb the peace of sunken souls. Even today, the most hardened sea wolves, their faces etched by icy winds, visibly pale at the mere mention of its colossal shadow. For they know with certainty, in the impenetrable abyss lurks something before which neither ship cannons nor fervent prayers to patron saints are powerless. Chapter 2. Abode and Traces. Leaving behind the dusty pages of grimoires, we embark on a search for real evidence. We are to examine the cursed dwelling places of this primeval horror, whose presence has forever been imprinted on the geography of dead waters, old sea charts, and forgotten chronicles of northern seafarers. Delving into the ominous geography of the black northern seas, we uncover the chilling pages of forgotten maritime chronicles. These are harsh waters where the line between reality and gruesome myth blurs, and every impenetrable fog conceals the relentless death brought by the primeval deep. Look at Olaus Magnus's Carta Marina from 1539. The parchment meticulously depicts a colossal monster mercilessly tormenting a galleon off the rocky coasts of Norway. This is not an allegory, but a cartographer's stern warning about a real threat lurking for ships in these cursed waters. The Lofoten Islands have long held a special, terrifying reputation. Their dark, leaden waters are still considered by local fishermen to be the monster's favorite hunting ground. Legends say that it is here, among the sheer black cliffs, that the Kraken most often rises from the abyss to gather its dreadful harvest. The ominous natural maelstrom of Saltstraumen has inspired primal awe in people for centuries. Ancient Scandinavians firmly believed that this colossal, swirling vortex was nothing less than the rhythmic, heavy breathing of the Kraken sleeping at the bottom. Each turn of the dark water was considered the pulse of the monster slumbering in the gloom. 17th century chronicles preserve gruesome accounts of mysterious disappearances of entire fishing settlements on the foggy coast of Finnmark. People vanished without a trace overnight, leaving warm hearths and set tables untouched. Only a thick, corrosive slime on the coastal rocks hinted at the true culprit of the tragedy. On the sheer cliffs of the fjords, researchers still find giant, deep furrows in solid granite. These terrifying scars, left by colossal, horny suckers during anomalous tides, serve as silent proof that the Lord of the Depths can reach with its tentacles even to the safety of land. Closed Danish archives conceal blood-curdling reports of ghost ships. These cursed vessels were found drifting in the open sea, completely without crew. Their decks were untouched by storms, but from top to bottom they were abundantly covered in thick, foul-smelling slime, and the planks were saturated with the unbearable stench of the decaying abyss. Off the coast of Iceland lives a chilling legend of a sunken ghost island. Lost sailors joyfully steer towards its gentle shores, unaware that this saving land is merely a small part of the back of a slumbering Leviathan. The island periodically surfaces from the abyss to deceive and devour doomed fools. In 1780, a lieutenant of the Norwegian fleet recorded something bloodcurdling in his diary. With indescribable horror, he watched as, in calm waters before his frigate, a living archipelago slowly rose from the sea, emitting poisonous miasmas and obscuring the horizon. The specific relief of the Norwegian sea floor seems tailor-made for sheltering giants. It is entirely carved with bottomless black depressions and deep-sea canyons. It is in these icy, lightless chasms, beyond the reach of any modern sonar, that ancient evil finds its ideal, impregnable refuge. On the cold, rocky shores of Scotland, the ocean has repeatedly cast monstrous fragments of colossal tentacles. Local chroniclers noted with a shudder a terrifying anomaly. This pale, ribbed flesh utterly resisted natural decomposition, as if nature itself refused to accept the remains of a creature born from the absolute primeval chaos of the depths. There is a grim tale of a cursed lighthouse built on a solitary black rock. Its keepers, one after another, permanently lost their sanity. In their incoherent writings, they spoke of giant yellow eyes that stared unblinkingly at them every night from the raging, impenetrable darkness of the sea. Yellowed church books in Tromsø preserve records of special, secret night masses. Priests performed these grim rituals by the light of black candles, praying to the heavens for protection from the sea devil. They asked to shield their flock from the multi-armed demon whose presence poisoned the very soul of the ocean. Even today, terrifying anomalous zones exist in the North Sea. Military sailors, under strict secrecy, report system failures. Their sonars periodically detect slow, deliberate movement of colossal biological objects in the dark depths, whose sizes are comparable to mountains. The mystical glow of the dead waters off the icy coast of Greenland has terrified whalers for centuries. This is not merely a play of light, but the deep-sea bioluminescence of the Kraken itself. Its colossal body, covered in phosphorescent ulcers, emits a cold, ghostly radiance that penetrates the black depths of the ocean like a harbinger of imminent doom. Deep-sea submersibles have discovered ancient oak skeletons of Viking longships on the black, muddy bottom of the harsh Barents Sea. Their strongest frames are pulverized into dust and flattened by an unknown, truly colossal force. No fierce storm could disfigure ships in such a way. This is clearly the signature of the underwater lord's crushing tentacles. In the late 19th century, masters of the secret Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn equipped clandestine occult expeditions. Armed with ancient grimoires and astrolabes, they maniacally sought the precise coordinates of the Leviathan's lair. The occultists believed that an awakened Kraken would grant them absolute power over the primeval chaos of the dark waters. On the windswept Orkney Islands, grim ritual megaliths still stand. Ancient Celtic druids arranged these giant standing stones in strict geometric order. Their weathered runic script served as a powerful magical shield, warding off the multi-armed creature from the defenseless northern shores. The annals of history preserve terrifying accounts from the French naturalist Pierre Denis de Montfort. In his seminal work, he documented a blood-curdling incident off the warm coasts of Angola. There, a colossal monster, rising from the boiling abyss, clamped firmly onto the sides of a three-masted merchant vessel. Montfort's famous old engraving depicts this nightmare with terrifying anatomical precision. A colossal octopus mercilessly wraps its muscular tentacles around the fragile masts of the doomed sailing ship. The people on deck appear as pathetic specks before the primeval, soulless evil that slowly drags them into the black abyss. Persistent rumors claim that in the deepest, damp cellars of the British Museum, mysterious giant remains are secretly stored. These are fragments of a colossal horny beak and fossilized suckers the size of a mill wheel. Scientists prefer to remain silent, but cryptozoologists are convinced these are genuine material proofs of the Kraken's existence. There is a cursed stretch of water, known among seasoned sailors as the Devil's Sea. Upon entering this ominous zone, ship compass needles begin to spin wildly and eventually fail. The water itself here becomes unnaturally thick, viscous, and sticky, like black boiling tar from the underworld. The rugged coastline of the Faroe Islands conceals a network of grim, submerged caves. On moonless nights, local fishermen tightly lock their doors. From the black basaltic chasms emanates a low-frequency, vibrating, guttural hum, the heavy breathing of the Leviathan slumbering in the darkness, which chills the blood. Ancient seafarers whispered a legend about the so-called Black Current. This is a hidden deep-sea river traversing the entire globe. According to chilling beliefs, it secretly carries the Kraken's colossal, leathery eggs to other oceans, sowing the seeds of chthonic horror across the planet. The closed archives of the British Admiralty, strictly classified reports from the Cold War era are kept. Captains of nuclear submarines reported severe collisions at great depths with unidentified biological objects. These colossal living obstacles easily crushed sturdy titanium hulls, leaving deep, jagged furrows. The most terrifying confirmation of the monster's power is the carcasses of dead sperm whales washed ashore on harsh coasts. These formidable predators of the deep become pathetic victims. Their mangled bodies are entirely covered with fresh, perfectly round scars from giant suckers, whose diameter sometimes exceeds a full meter. Mystical treatises assert that the Kraken is not merely a mindless predator. It feeds not only on torn human flesh, but also on pure, primeval fear. The agony of sailors drowning in the black, icy water, their death cries and despair, serve as true nectar for this dark deity. On snowy Spitsbergen, an abandoned whaling station slowly rots. At the beginning of the last century, its stern workers panicked, abandoned their tools, and fled to the mainland. They were all simultaneously haunted by maddening collective nightmares of endless writhing tentacles reaching out from beneath the black ice. Captains who dared to drop anchor over the uncharted ocean abyss often discovered a terrifying phenomenon. Upon raising massive chains, they found strange, light-pulsating crystalline deposits on the heavy cast iron. This was solidified Kraken slime, corroding the metal and emitting the nauseating stench of dead marine flesh. The grim legend of the cursed Captain Vanderdecken conceals a gruesome secret. His ghost ship, famously known as the Flying Dutchman, does not merely wander stormy seas. It is doomed to eternally flee from the colossal tentacles of the Kraken, which relentlessly pursue it through space and time. In secret collections, ancient, time-darkened ship's wheels are preserved. On their oak spokes, intricate carvings depict scenes of unequal struggle with the multi-armed deity. These artifacts are silent testimony that sailors of the past clearly understood the ruthless evil with which they shared the Black Ocean. The indigenous tribes inhabiting the foggy shores of Newfoundland knew the true price of a calm sea. After every destructive storm, they performed cruel blood sacrifices. Priests cast fresh meat into the black, icy waves to sate the primeval hunger of the multi-armed demon and avert its wrath from their settlements. The ominous, thick fogs of the Grand Banks of Newfoundland have long had a sinister reputation. In this impenetrable milky haze, sounds are distorted and the water becomes still. It is here, under the cloak of silence, that the Kraken's colossal tentacles silently glide, slowly and methodically searching the shroud for their new, doomed prey. A turning point came in 1861. The crew of the French warship Alecto encountered the monster off the Canary Islands. Sailors desperately tried to harpoon the giant squid, but its flesh proved incredibly dense. The creature easily snapped the thick ropes and vanished into the dark abyss. A severed piece of a writhing tentacle, brought back by the crew, was displayed with genuine horror in the halls of the French Academy of Sciences. This slippery, scarred fragment of dead flesh continued to emit a nauseating stench of decay, becoming the first tangible proof of the existence of a primeval marine nightmare. The 19th century scientific community froze in silent shock. The rational skepticism of learned men swiftly shattered against the mystical awe of the abyss. Gazing at the serrated horny rings of the suckers, even the most hardened materialists realized that the ancient Scandinavian sagas were not mere fabrications after all. Meanwhile, in the damp docks of foggy London, secret blood cults flourished. Stern dock workers and seasoned whalers secretly gathered by the light of tallow candles, offering gruesome oaths to the Lord of Shadows. They believed that only worship of the Kraken could save them from certain death. A special mark became the secret sign of lifelong belonging to this grim brotherhood of survivors. The symbol of a rusty anchor, tightly entwined with knotted tentacles, was branded onto their bodies. This mark served as a silent pact with the dark abyss, guaranteeing that the deep would not swallow its devoted child. Among old sailors, there still lives a strict, unspoken rule, whispered from father to son. A true sea dog will never gaze too long into the dark water beyond the rail. For if you stare into the abyss, the Kraken stares back into you. Studying these scattered testimonies, we arrive at a terrifying conclusion. The Kraken's true abode is not a specific geographical point on an old map at all. Its lair is the primeval, impenetrable darkness of the ocean itself, ready at any moment to open up beneath our fragile keels. Chapter 3. Comparative Analysis. Leaving behind the leaden waters of the Norwegian fjords, we begin a search for terrifying parallels in the myths of entirely different peoples. The hidden truth lies precisely in these gruesome coincidences scattered across the most diverse corners of our vast, unsolved world. A large-scale comparative analysis of mythological monsters from the depths makes the blood run cold. From the frigid shores of Iceland to the tropical islands of Polynesia, everywhere we find chilling traces of the same ancient evil, taking different but equally deadly forms. Let us recall the ancient Greek myth of the multi-headed Scylla. In ancient scrolls, she is described as a monster whose long serpentine necks swiftly snatched doomed sailors from the decks of passing triremes. This relentless tactic terrifyingly accurately mirrors the behavior of the northern Leviathan's giant tentacles. Biblical texts mention Leviathan, a colossal serpent from the abyss whose breath makes the water boil. Its apocalyptic description, recorded on the pages of sacred tomes, eerily echoes the colossal power of the Kraken. Both creatures are born from primeval chaos and bring absolute destruction. Even further back in time, the ancient Sumerian epic takes us. Carved on clay tablets is the name Tiamat, the primeval goddess of salt waters. She embodied absolute chthonic chaos, the very primordial darkness of the ocean, whose direct heir and faithful guardian is the Kraken. The Scandinavian horror is also reflected in Slavic legends of Chudo-Yudo fish whale. This giant monster, carrying entire cursed cities on its immense back, strikingly resembles the living island from Pontoppidan's treatises. The idea of colossal false land has haunted humanity for millennia. The Celtic myth of Cu-Seath, the phantom sea hound, also conceals something more ancient beneath its guise. Behind the image of a giant dog lurks the same formless evil of the dark waters that drags lost souls into the abyss, leaving no trace on the surface. The chilling beliefs of the Inuit warn of tupilaks, vengeful spirits carved from bone and brought to life by shamanic blood. In water, they take the form of unimaginable sea monsters, whose cruelty and insatiable hunger precisely mirror the behavior of the ruthless lord of the northern seas. On the other side of the world, Caribbean legends whisper of Lusca, a giant symbiosis of octopus and shark. This monster mercilessly drags unwary divers to the bottom of bottomless blue holes. Deadly tentacles once again serve as the perfect instrument of killing in the pitch-black underwater darkness. Grim Polynesian traditions preserve the memory of Kan Narua, an ancient deity in the form of a colossal octopus. He reigns supreme over the cold underworld, collecting tribute in human lives. His multi-armed shadow looms over coral reefs, instilling a primal, paralyzing fear in the Aboriginal people. The universal motif of entire ships and their crews being swallowed extends throughout human history, from the biblical Jonah, swallowed by a whale, to Icelandic sagas of the insatiable Hafgufa. We see the same terrifying narrative of human helplessness before the living abyss. This deep archetype of fear of dark water is firmly embedded in our collective subconscious. It is passed down through generations, reminding us that we are merely fragile land-dwelling guests in a world where ancient, merciless predators reign supreme. It is striking how entirely different isolated cultures independently described giant ocean whirlpools. Shamans and priests worldwide interpreted these vortices uniformly as greedily gaping maws of underwater monsters ready to devour all living things within many miles. The role of multi-armedness in world mythology is not accidental. Countless writhing tentacles reveal an ancient symbol of all-encompassing chaos and the inevitability of blind fate. From this chthonic grasp, one cannot escape. It cannot be severed by a sword. It overtakes everyone who dares to challenge the dark waters. The study of occult treatises reveals a terrifying mystical connection between sea monsters and lunar cycles. Destructive tides, guided by the black moon, were considered in many esoteric traditions not merely a natural phenomenon, but the hungry breath of slumbering giants, whose dark blood is synchronized with the rhythm of the dead celestial body. This terrifying motif of a living island appears even in ancient Arabian tales of Sinbad the Sailor. Legends describe the treacherous whale island Zaratan, whose forest-covered back deceived weary seafarers for centuries before suddenly plunging into the icy abyss, carrying screaming people to certain death. Comparing terrifying anatomical details, researchers highlight a common feature: giant, unblinking eyes. In the tales of vastly different cultures, these phosphorescent yellow spheres are capable of paralyzing the will, hypnotizing the doomed victim, like the gaze of a primeval deity mercilessly staring from the deepest abyss. Ancient myths of the Haida Indians tell of sea monsters that spew poisonous ink or a thick, maddening fog. This blinding cloud not only concealed the creature, but it poisoned the mind, forcing suffocating sailors to witness their most gruesome nightmares before inevitable doom. The study of bloody rituals to appease sea gods is striking in its scope. Practices range from ancient mass hecatombs, where waters were stained with the sacrificial blood of hundreds of bulls, to secret Pomor offerings, where, in the darkness of the northern night, still warm flesh was silently given to the ocean. The occult symbolism of the spiral, whether a coiled shell or a roaring ocean whirlpool, has always carried an ominous meaning. In secret grimoires, this symbol is unequivocally interpreted as an inevitable sign of descent into the cold realm of the dead, from which no living soul is destined to return. Comparing the Kraken with the Babylonian dragon Mushushu, researchers find terrifying parallels. Both monsters are defined as eternal, merciless guardians of primeval chaos, hidden in dark waters. They patiently await their hour to tear apart the fabric of creation and forever consume all life. On yellowed maps of the Renaissance, sea serpents and multi-armed monsters served as formidable markers. They delineated the boundaries of uncharted zones under the chilling motto, "Here be dragons," warning seafarers that beyond that line awaited only an encounter with absolute darkness. A careful study of Conrad Gessner's treatise, Historia Animalium, reveals a striking picture. On its ancient pages, an old mystical myth is closely intertwined with the first stirrings of cryptozoology, attempting to clothe the primeval terror of the Kraken's tentacles in a rigorous yet still frightening scientific form. An analysis of Ulysses Aldravandi's gruesome medieval engravings reveals grotesque, abominable monsters. These illustrations unnaturally combine features of scaled deep-sea fish and giant cephalopods, creating images of creatures whose mere presence is capable of driving an unprepared viewer permanently insane. Comparing the fatal attitude towards the elements, we see a clear distinction. While land-based civilizations feared the sea from afar, seafarers embraced its dual nature. The dark water was a generous provider for them, but at the same time, a vast, cold, and nameless grave. Medieval Christian tradition mercilessly demonized the image of the Kraken. Church hierarchs transformed the primeval deity of the depths into a nightmarish, multi-armed servant of Satan himself. Its writhing tentacles became a metaphor for sinful temptations, relentlessly dragging weak human souls to the very bottom of the fiery, hellish cauldron. The study of time-blackened, forbidden apocryphal texts reveals an even more gruesome truth. In them, sea leviathans are described not merely as beasts, but as merciless instruments of the coming last judgment, destined to tear the earth apart on the day of the final apocalypse. An analysis of the motif of cursed immortality leads us to a chilling conclusion. Like the world serpent Jormungandr, the Kraken cannot die. It is plunged into a heavy, unnatural sleep and patiently slumbers in the darkness until the very end of time, awaiting the signal for the final battle. This comparison reveals the grim dualism of the Scandinavian apocalypse. Jormungandr is a colossal serpent encircling the entire visible world in a tight ring, and the Kraken is a formless, pulsating creature, lurking at its very black center, ready to devour what remains of the universe. Secret chronicles describe the insane attempts of medieval alchemists. They genuinely believed that the forbidden secret of eternal life was hidden in the thick, pitch-black blood of giant octopuses. For a drop of this poisonous substance, they offered human sacrifices to the monster on desolate, rocky shores. The study of occult legends about sunken Lemuria throws up another terrifying hypothesis. Some mystics suggest that the Kraken is a relic of a bygone era, one of the ancient creatures that survived a global cataclysm and hid from destruction in the deepest, most inaccessible ocean trenches. Analyzing the universality of omens, researchers highlight a gruesome sonic marker. In myths from cold Scandinavia to hot Oceania, the monster's appearance is always preceded by a low, vibrating, guttural hum. This sound makes wooden decks creak and sailors' hearts clench with primal, indescribable terror. The similarity of protective amulets is also striking. Stern Scandinavian runes carved on walrus bone, and the blue Mediterranean Eye of Fatima painted on the bows of fishing boats served a single purpose: to ward off the unblinking gaze of the abyss, preventing the monster from dragging the vessel into its dark lair. For centuries, the terrifying image of the Kraken served as the sole answer to the mysteries of the merciless ocean. When mighty galleons vanished without a trace in clear weather and only splintered planks washed ashore, people whispered blame upon the multi-armed lord hiding in the darkness. If one delves into the dark labyrinths of the human psyche, the Kraken appears not merely as a monster, but as the absolute embodiment of primal fear. It is the chilling terror of a complete loss of control over a merciless element, when fragile life finds itself at the mercy of the blind, relentless forces of the Black Ocean. When science first encountered the nightmarish anatomical details of real giant squids, Archipelago, the rational world shuddered. Serrated suckers, powerful horny beaks, and enormous, expressionless eyes terrifyingly accurately confirmed the veracity of the most insane and bloody ancient myths about the sea devil. Although Bishop Pontoppidan's works seemed an exaggeration, reality proved little more merciful. In the stomachs of dead sperm whales washed ashore on cold rocks, the remains of 18-meter cephalopods were found. The whales' backs, riddled with deep scars, served as silent testimony to titanic battles unfolding in the darkness of inaccessible ocean trenches. But even these impressive dimensions of modern Archipelago in no way negate the chilling possibility of even more colossal ancient specimens. Who can guarantee that in the black, unexplored fissures of the seabed, relict creatures do not lurk, whose age is measured in millennia and whose size could eclipse the sun? The mysterious phenomenon of deep-sea gigantism transforms the inhabitants of the abyss into grotesque giants. In ancient times, such anomalous sizes were rightly perceived as a direct divine curse. The deeper the darkness descends, the more monstrous its offspring become, as if the abyss itself forges them for the coming end of the world. It is impossible to attribute to mere coincidence the terrifying similarities in minute details between entirely isolated cultures. Identical descriptions of poisonous breath, phosphorescent eyes, and giant tentacles clearly indicate, at the heart of the myth lies humanity's real, tangible, and deadly encounter with the master of the depths. The Kraken is not an idle fabrication of drunken sailors. It is our collective traumatic memory, carefully passed down from generation to generation, an encrypted warning that beyond the illuminated world lurks something ancient, hungry, and infinitely far removed from any human understanding. Chapter 4. The Evolution of Fear. Centuries passed. Sails gave way to steam engines, but the primal terror of dark water never disappeared. It merely lay dormant, changed its form, and subtly permeated the modern era, extending its slippery tentacles into culture. This grim evolution of fear led to the emergence of an entirely new, modern cult of blood-curdling Lovecraftian monsters. The ancient myth of the sea devil intertwined with mystical fatalism, transforming the Kraken from a mere shipwrecker into an ominous herald of inevitable apocalypse and cosmic despair. The prim Victorian era, with its penchant for dark occultism, had a colossal influence on the Gothic romanticization of the abyss. Sea leviathans underwent profound demonization, becoming, in the eyes of enlightened society, not merely animals, but multi-armed agents of the underworld, sent to drag sinful souls into the depths. A true turning point in the perception of this threat was Jules Verne's novel, 20,000 Leagues Under the Seas. The writer forever erased the illusion of safety, demonstrating that even advanced technology and steel submarine hulls cannot protect us from the fury of primeval marine chaos. The cruel, bloody scene of the Nautilus crew's battle with giant squids became firmly ingrained in the collective consciousness. This episode forever cemented the image of a merciless monster whose writhing tentacles can easily crush the pride of human engineering, dragging doomed sailors into the cold and silent darkness. The secret of Verne's terrifying impact lies in his masterful weaving of real reports from frightened French sailors of the ship Alecto into his text. This documentary precision created an atmosphere of chilling authenticity, where the line between fiction and the truth hidden in the ocean's darkness was definitively blurred. An even more ominous tone was set by Alfred Tennyson in his grim poem, The Kraken. He imbued the monster with an aura of mystical fatalism, describing it as an ancient, incomprehensible deity that slumbers for ages at the very bottom, hidden from human eyes by a thick veil of dead seaweed. Tennyson's prophetic lines state that the Kraken sleeps dreamless, deep in the dark, until apocalyptic heavenly fire boils the ocean depths. Only then will it rise to the surface, to appear before angels and perish, ending its existence with the end of the world. Thus occurred a smooth yet irreversible transition from the naive folkloric fear of fishermen to maddening cosmic horror. In early 20th century literature, the monster ceased to be merely a giant animal. It acquired the characteristics of chthonic evil, whose presence poisons the very human mind. It was this transformed image of the Scandinavian Leviathan that directly influenced H.P. Lovecraft in the creation of the great and terrible Cthulhu. The writer took the primal fear of slippery tentacles from the sea abyss and elevated it to an absolute, giving the world a new, dark idol. The parallels are obvious. Like the Kraken, Cthulhu slumbers in a deathly stupor on the cold bottom of the Pacific Ocean, hidden by the cyclopean ruins of the sunken city of Rhylia. Both await their hour, when the stars align correctly, to awaken and wipe pathetic human civilization from the face of the earth. Their shared chilling features are terrifying in their similarity: writhing tentacles, colossal, mind-numbing dimensions, and the ability to telepathically penetrate the dreams of the weak-willed. Both the Kraken and Cthulhu act not as predators, but as merciless harbingers of an inevitable apocalypse, whose awakening promises death. This viscous, maddening Lovecraftian horror paradoxically restored the Kraken to its original mystical status. It once again became an indifferent ancient deity, for whom our fates, our fears, and our hopes mean no more than a handful of ashes carried away by a cold northern wind. Thus, the Kraken definitively transformed from a folkloric sea beast into a cold, overwhelming symbol of incomprehensible cosmic indifference. This black abyss clearly demonstrates how insignificant and fragile human life is in the face of a vast, indifferent universe, concealing its true primeval lords in the darkness. Soon, this chthonic image migrated to propaganda posters of both world wars. Suffocating, slimy tentacles entwining the globe became a universal symbol of a hidden, omnipresent threat. The enemy was depicted as a faceless monster from the dark depths, whose cunning knew no earthly bounds. 20th century cinema eagerly embraced this archetype, visualizing the Kraken with terrifying ferocity. The silver screen transformed it into the main, most formidable antagonist of all grand maritime epics, making audiences shrink into their seats at the mere echoing sound of tearing ship rigging. The culmination of this process was the film Clash of the Titans. The famous, world-renowned phrase, "Release the Kraken," paradoxically forever blended harsh Scandinavian mythology with ancient Greek epic. The monster organically took the place of the ancient beast Cetus, absorbing it with its monstrous primeval glory. This astonishing paradox only underscores the power of the archetype. The fact that the northern Leviathan was so naturally placed in a sun-drenched ancient setting proved its terrifying, absolute universality. For the true horror of the abyss, it matters not at all which gods rule in the heavens. Later, The famous Pirates of the Caribbean franchise triumphantly restored the Kraken to its rightful status as a merciless destroyer of galleons. On screen, it appeared not merely as a giant beast, but as the ominous messenger of Davy Jones himself, an insatiable devourer of cursed souls, tearing frigates in half. The visual design of the creature in modern blockbusters places particular emphasis on nauseatingly realistic slimy flesh textures and rows of clacking beaks. In every movement of these wet tentacles, a primal Lovecraftian chthonic horror permeates, awakening in us a deeply buried unconscious fear of the blind element. Video games also could not ignore this phenomenon, often using the Kraken as the most challenging final boss. In virtual worlds, it symbolizes an absolutely insurmountable, crushing force of nature, victory over which requires almost divine exertion of all a hero's strength. But while popular culture entertains the masses, the modern cult of cryptozoologists pursues its obsessive quest. Armed with powerful searchlights and deep-sea autonomous submersibles, they methodically scour the black trenches of the ocean, firmly believing that beneath miles of dead water, that very Leviathan still lurks. Their hopes were partially realized when, in 2004, the first ever video recordings of a live giant squid in its natural habitat were obtained. These blurry frames instantly sparked a new, incredibly powerful wave of interest in the ancient myth, stirring forgotten fears. These real-life recordings, capturing glistening tentacles writhing in the darkness, proved no less terrifying than the crude medieval engravings of Olaus Magnus. The living nightmare of flesh and blood demonstrated that the abyss indeed spawns creatures whose appearance defies our fragile sanity. Adding more fuel to the fire of mystification was the famous bloop phenomenon, a colossal low-frequency sound recorded by acoustic radars in the Pacific Ocean. Thousands of conspiracy theorists gladly attributed this deafening roar to a slumbering kraken, supposedly stirring in its immense underwater lair before its imminent awakening. And although official science was quick to dryly explain this hum as the massive breakup of Antarctic glaciers, the dry reports failed to kill the popular belief in the monster. Rational arguments are always powerless where the viscous, mystical call of the unknown black deep takes hold. Yellowed ships' logs have been replaced by modern urban legends. Internet enthusiasts regularly find giant anomalies resembling rings of colossal tentacles in satellite images. People peer into screen pixels with the same superstitious awe with which Pomors once gazed into thick fog. The Kraken's transformation into a popular internet meme is not a sign of neglect, but merely our collective defense mechanism. By laughing at the monster, modern society desperately tries to mask the very chthonic horror that inevitably awakens within us at the sight of the boundless, indifferent expanse of water. Today, the monster's image is cynically used in commercial branding, from strong rum to sports teams. Corporations successfully capitalize on this ancient primal fear, transforming a grim legend into ringing coin. However, beneath the bright labels, the dark heart of an ancient Scandinavian curse still beats. At the same time, far from worldly bustle, secret societies and modern occult orders seriously continue their dark practices. They meditate on the image of the abyss, using the Kraken symbol as a key to understanding the primeval chaos that lies beyond our perception. Psychiatrists call this thalassophobia, a panic fear of the deep. But esotericists see something more in it, a direct genetic inheritance of those very ancient myths about the Kraken. This irrational terror has permeated our DNA, passed down from generation to generation, like an invisible dark seal. This is why the mere sight of impenetrable dark water still causes many modern people to experience bouts of suffocation and panic. Our subconscious clearly remembers what the conscious mind has long forgotten. Where the light ends, the domain of those who feed on our fear begins. Global climate change and the rapid melting of ancient ice only fuel these archaic nightmares. New, terrifying theories emerge about the imminent awakening of ancient viruses and colossal creatures that have slept for millennia in frozen, suspended animation, waiting for warm currents to break their icy shackles. Nowadays, the Kraken increasingly appears not just as a mystical beast, but as a living embodiment of an impending ecological catastrophe. This primeval deity seems to be preparing to rise from the poisoned depths to forever engulf our arrogant civilization, blinded by its own pride. Modern visionaries and artists depict the Leviathan not as absolute evil, but as a merciless yet just avenger. It is the planet's own immune response, a punishing mechanism that will ruthlessly cleanse the sacred waters of the oceans from oil slicks and rusty iron. Science fiction writers go even further, confidently placing gruesome analogues of the Kraken in the uncharted, eternally icebound oceans of Europa, Jupiter's distant moon. There, in the utter cosmic darkness, beneath miles of dead ice, colossal mantle muscles might well be pulsating. This terrifying cosmetization of the ancient myth clearly demonstrates how the primal fear of the Earth's dark ocean depths is easily and organically projected onto the infinite abyss of outer space. Humanity still fears what lurks in the darkness of the unknown vacuum. Psychology reveals a harsh truth. Regardless of the age of enlightenment and the triumph of science, humanity always needs its monster. We desperately need a chthonic beast to clearly feel our vulnerable boundaries and recognize our own fragility in the face of eternity. Even today, on modern steel ships, stern sailors continue to honor old superstitions. Jokingly, yet with a hidden trace of primal superstitious fear, they toss coins overboard, as if trying to appease that ancient thing that still slumbers below. We are witnessing a terrifying resurgence of mass interest in the original Scandinavian sagas. People are tired of glossy fairy tales and eagerly seek unadapted, truly grim versions of the ancient myth, where there is no miraculous salvation, but only a merciless, roaring ocean abyss. Modern neural networks generate terrifyingly realistic, maddening images of the Kraken. These soulless algorithms seem to connect directly to our collective unconscious, feeding on archaic fear and visualizing the monster in all its chthonic splendor, unimaginable to the human eye. At closed exhibitions of the London Cryptozoology Society, a preserved giant archipelago tentacle symbolically rests alongside authentic medieval grimoires. Scientific fact and dark occult mysticism intertwine, blurring the tenuous line between strict biology and the ancient curse of the northern seas. There is a chilling paradox. Modern humanity has mapped distant galaxies and thoroughly studied the dead craters on the moon, yet the bottom of our own Earth's oceans remains as terrifying a mystery to us as it was millennia ago. The dry statistics are merciless. Over 80% of the world ocean still remains absolutely unexplored. This colossal territory, hidden in darkness, leaves more than enough dark space for the Kraken to hide with impunity from our radars. In the black deep-sea trenches, monstrous pressure can instantly crush sturdy titanium like a thin eggshell. But contrary to all laws of physics, a strange, blind, and grotesque life teems there, needing no saving sunlight. Bold scientific hypotheses suggest that true relict giants inhabit these dead abyssal zones. They are hidden deep beneath the ocean floor, in cyclopean caves that are completely inaccessible to the penetrating beams of modern military echo sounders and sonars. Strangely enough, we find a perverse psychological comfort in the thought that in our sterile, rational world, there are still unsolved mysteries, terrifying to the core. The Kraken offers us the saving illusion that nature is still stronger than our machines. This immortal, salt blood-soaked myth, cruelly yet absolutely justly, teaches us true humility. The Kraken reminds us of the primeval grandeur and blind fury of nature, which cannot be conquered, tamed, or shackled by the pathetic steel chains of human progress. This is why, every time we gaze into the nocturnal, reflectionless black water beyond the rail, we subconsciously freeze. Somewhere deep in our minds, we are still tensely awaiting the sudden appearance of a giant eye, pulsating with a yellow glow. An analysis of the eternity of this myth delivers an unequivocal verdict. As long as the ocean exists on Earth, so too will this sticky, will-paralyzing fear, the fear of that primeval horror that patiently hides at its very icy, unexplored bottom. Thus concludes the long, mystery-filled evolution of the Kraken. From a local folktale of frightened Pomors, it was reborn into a global, cosmic archetype of horror, becoming an immortal symbol of the abyss that forever stares back at our timid gaze. The epilogue brings us back to where it all began. Feel the oppressive, blood-curdling atmosphere of the stormy northern sea. A lonely, doomed ship helplessly pitches on the leaden waves, and beneath its fragile wooden keel, an endless void, greedy for human souls, opens up. The cold light of modern science has only faintly illuminated the very surface of the world ocean. All the rest, the abyss incomprehensible to reason, has forever remained under the absolute dominion of ancient chthonic lords. There, in the darkness, the laws of physics give way to ancient magic and primeval chaos. Recall Alfred Tennyson's chilling prophecy. Ancient lines state that the true Kraken sleeps dreamless in its dark abyss, and it will awaken only when apocalyptic fire boils the oceans. It will rise to the surface, signaling the absolute, inevitable end of our world. And as these words are spoken, know this. Right now, in the icy, impenetrable black darkness of bottomless trenches, colossal mantle muscles slowly and rhythmically pulsate. There, where light has never penetrated, something unimaginably ancient lurks in the darkness. It patiently awaits its fateful hour. Next time you find yourself on a desolate shore, listen to the heavy roar of the night surf. Close your eyes. In the low, vibrating rumble of the cold, leaden waves, you will distinctly discern the measured, deep breathing of a sleeping god. It is still there, and it silently waits in the darkness.